No. No. Too much art. Too little time.
In a world where art goes on sale.
Good. It was just a dream.
Did you dream about another art sale?
Yeah. You were there. You had a giant chainsaw, and you were slashing prices left and right.
Did it include your drawing basics course and my perspective course?
Everything, Marshall. No course or tool was safe.
Stan, that was no dream.
Don't sleep on these deals. Save 20% on all courses and tools during Proko's Black Friday sale. From now until December 4th.
It's so good. It's catching the light on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes
All
me
right.
look better than Hugh Hefner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How's it going, Morgan Weistling?
Hey, Steven, how are you?
It's pretty good so far. It's good to be joined by you and everyone else here in the chat. To those of you who don't know, this is one of Stan's favorite living artists. A person that Stan is not a person who travels to other people's homes to go shoot videos in, but he made a whole, I think it was it a 2-day trip to go visit you?
Oh, I thought he did it all in one day, but that was a long day. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you guys did make 2 paintings while you were there. 2 of the same painting.
I think we did. Yeah, that was a long day. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, for those of you guys who don't know, Morgan Weistling is a fantastic painter who I would say is mostly known for his Western work, though I don't think that's all that you do. But Morgan has a painting course that is called Painting Without a Brain. I swear there is actual knowledge that goes into those things, but Morgan breaks it down pretty nicely in a way where you don't have to get so caught up in all of the details, at least at the start. You save those details for the end when you really deserve them.
Correct.
Yeah. Today we're going to be going through one of Morgan's paintings, a demonstration that he has behind him right there in the background that you guys can see.
That one.
So we'll be going through some of that and then talking about some of his process and answering questions from you guys in the chat. Please feel free to give us questions. Don't think that any of them are too stupid. Like we said, this is specifically for painting without a brain. So, Morgan, what do you want to talk about today in all of that?
Oh, I don't know. Just the weather, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a sunny day again, so
It's you do have incredibly nice lighting in your studio, so when it's nice and lit.
I have a lot of different problems of when I do these kinds of things. I have too much light going on, so I've blocked off my north light window right now, actually, which I normally paint to with a little bit of a cooler light coming in. But when I do live streaming or anything, I look dead because it's a much more blue kind of light. So I blocked it off.
Okay, I was gonna say because right now it looks nice and warm, like it's
Yeah,
okay.
I lit a fire right here, so it's just like a crackling, and so I have to put wood down every once in a while.
Just throwing some ripped up paintings every once in a while. Okay, so I see some questions are rolling in here, but I think we should get in at the start what we're going to be kind of discussing as a baseline.
So instead of doing this while we're talking and painting it, which I would never have been able to complete that in 2 hours and talk at the same time, it was suggested to me, why don't we do that ahead of time where I videotape myself doing the entire thing, and then I'll just talk you through it and take your questions, whatever you want to know, I'll let you know. But it truly is a process that my instructional video gives you, which is not using your brain, especially in the beginnings of the whole process. So I'm going to kind of like talk you through that right now, as you're going to see me start to sketch on the canvas, and I'll just start talking it through. I'll stop whenever anybody has a question and answer it.
Okay, sounds great. Do you want me to bring that video up then?
Yeah, let's just get it started, because even though I have sped it up, I don't actually work as fast as you're about to see.
Yeah.
it's amazing to me as I sped it up, and I still realized that, I'm pretty slow. I take a long time to do things. So it was like, it's a good thing I'm speeding this up for you guys, because it would have been hilariously boring. But I wanted to just point out right in this beginning stages of me deciding to, pick this head to paint, of my good friend and actor, Jeff Dujardin. Okay, can you just stop it for a
Hmm.
second? That went faster than I expected. So I wrote placement only of head, because that's to me to tell you what you just saw me quickly sketch there was not drawing. I don't consider that drawing. That was just getting a feel for the size of the head and where I'm going to put it, which means I'm not really doing anything in regards to observation other than the area that I'm about to occupy. So now, when I pull that piece of paper away, what we'll see is me starting to actually draw and not use my brain, and just literally look at shapes and trying not to think about at all what they are, but just distances, shapes, distances, measuring. And as you can see next to me here, I'm using a monitor with the head, and you could say it maybe looks a little larger than it really was because it's closer to the camera.
Yeah.
But that the head is still a good size, because when you do this sort of thing, if you print it out or whether you use a monitor, you want it a good enough size so when you squint down, you actually still see something, because a lot of the process has to do with squinting and getting rid of detail. So I always have my reference next to me large so I can squint down at it. Plus, it's easier for me to hold up a pencil or a brush to do some like vertical measurements and horizontal measurements and things like that. You can't do that with tiny little photos. So
Hmm.
in the course, I make a big deal about, please make sure that your reference is large. So you can go ahead and take away that placement only.
Okay. Yeah. Let's
Just
go.
start going. So
You
from
said
this point on, real drawing begins.
I like the notation here.
It's real technical. I'm good at video, huh?
I appreciate it. It's
So
like editor's notes. This is good.
yeah. So there you saw the placement. Now I'm going to start and pick a spot. And what I usually do is pick usually an eye socket, one or the other, that has the most distinct shapes that I can start gauging from. So I don't pick the eye that doesn't have enough shadow and light and shadow pattern to it. I try to pick the side that has the most pattern, because the more of a light and dark pattern you have, the easier it is to just sort of see the shapes and react to them, draw them, try to design them, try to, get them to be a little bit more, strengthened in your shape.
Is
And
that
so,
also a tool for setting proportion for other areas as well?
well, the whole idea is getting something correct that you've decided is correct, and accurate. It's all about accuracy at this point. That's all it's like you're trying to do. Accurately measure and get your distances and placement correct. And the reason I don't start off with like, you know, the elliptical kind of thing, the whole, Andrew Loomis sort of idea, doing that, is because that's more of a formulaic way. My whole course is to break the formulas and just literally try to go for what you see and just react to what you see. Don't try and use preconceived pieces of information, but literally just measure, measure, measure. And in the course, if you pause it for a second,
Hmm.
just flash up where the way I begin with the very first demonstration, which is with, this particular painting here. That's the first one that in the course has. Please show the grid,
Yeah. Let me bring that
that
up
I just
here.
sort of like start. So in the beginning, this course is for beginners. So just remember that. And I'm painting even this painting that you're about to finish, um, in a
Let's
in a way that beginners can really understand and get the concept of how to just see without preconceived ideas. And so what I do is for that first one, I show how you will do a grid. I go through the whole process of showing how to grid something so that you can now get a decently proportioned what you're actually looking at head, not a generic head, not a idealized head, but the head This is portrait. So you're trying to get what you see and get the essence of that person. So in the beginning, we do grids, and I show how to do that. And so I didn't want to do that with this demonstration today because it's just it'll look like it'll take a little longer sometimes doing it this way because you have to make the grid and all that. But in the course, I show you how to wean yourself off not needing the grid anymore. So what you're about to see today is me showing that stage that also is covered in the course of now you're still looking and seeing the same way that that grid is teaching you to see, only you don't have the grids there to actually look at. You're using your brush or you're just using your eye to, you know,
Like,
I don't think you should be showing me talking, saying, doing something else. You're going to break
No, I
the
want to do this
space.
one here.
It actually will ruin the space-time continuum. You're going to destroy the Earth.
Yeah,
but,
no,
but, uh, but anyways, so let's go back to the demonstration so I don't go
Okay.
on and on and on.
There was one question that a couple questions that came up about things that are here at the beginning of this process in the recorded video. So I've got one from Joyce asking, what materials is he using for the underdrawing?
Yeah, I use vine charcoal.
Okay.
That's I buy it from Dick Blick right now, and I get it. You know, sometimes it comes this way, sometimes it comes this way, and the whole point is to try to go and always just buy the thinnest ones they sell. Um, I noticed that every time I go on the site to buy more, it's a different brand. They don't seem to keep the same brand all the time, but I just go for thin, thin, thin. The thinner, the better,
Mhm.
so I can get as much detail as possible when I'm
And
doing it.
what is it that makes you choose that material over something else for a person
Oh,
who doesn't have experience with this?
easy peasy lemon squeezy. Answer for that is all you have to see is how it works so well. It just automatically just I can erase it with my finger. It just comes off so easy. So I use a kneaded eraser to do some erasing with, and it barely you just barely touch it. And
Mhm.
why am I only seeing myself right now?
Because you were
Oh,
doing
okay.
something far away.
Okay.
You were
All
showing big
right.
things, so
Okay,
I
I'll get
made you
used to
full
that.
screen.
Okay. Anyways, that's why. It just erases beautifully. My wife likes to use charcoal pencil sometimes when she's doing it, more like a Blaisdell or whatever we would call these now, and the wrapper. But you cannot erase these very well. It always leaves a trace of itself if you
Yeah,
want
this
to do.
this has an oil content to it, doesn't it?
No, it's not a China marker. It's just a charcoal pencil, but it's hard compared to vine charcoal. It's just like soft. It's like powdery almost, you know, and it's
Mhm.
just beautiful to draw with, you know. I don't know whether I'm going to do much erasing here. I probably will. You'll see me erase the placement underneath, and it just disappears. It doesn't
Yeah.
leave a trace of itself at all. So keep
Yeah.
going.
The
Yeah,
joke that was given to me when I was first learning with Vine was that if you sneeze, the vine will go away.
it will. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
almost blow it off. Yeah.
Yeah. There's one other thing here at the start. Most A in the chat was asking, is that a blue underpainting? If so, was that an intentional choice for this specific piece?
You know, it kind of does look blue. It even looks blue to me right now. It was I used a panel. I should have yeah, let me just get it. Let me explain.
Just chucking these paintings
All
around.
right. So I just went to Hobby Lobby and I noticed these watercolor canvas panels. These are fun to play with when you're practicing and doing stuff. They're cheap. And I mean I get like a pack of 5 of them for cheap. But these watercolor ones are awesome. They're uh got a little bit of a gesso or something on them, but they're very fine weaved. And this is a 12 by 16 that I worked on. Uh, so because it's acrylic primed, I just use acrylic like a medium gray out of the tube. It's not next to me, but it's sitting over there. And it ends up because it's not a warm gray, it's more of a cool gray. It ended up looking like a little bit of a cooler, but it doesn't matter. To me, it just helped to add vibration of color once the whole thing was done. If you see the original, you could see maybe little pieces of that kind of showing through,
Mhm.
giving a nice warm, cool effect, you know, with the warmer stuff.
That
So
is one
anyways,
thing Stan loves about your work is the you I think the thing that he's talked about the most with your work is this idea that you'll have this canvas off to the side that you kind of use almost like a palette in some ways. And so you're just slowly conditioning something, and then you'll just paint over that
Oh
and you
yeah.
get all this free weathering kind of thing.
Right, yeah. I think Richard Schmid used to do that, and that's where I picked up that idea when I was in art school, when I read that in his book or something. And so, yeah, when you instead of throwing away what we call mud at the end of the day, just take a palette knife and just put it on a canvas, and then eventually it might be something you can sort of work into, and it just have a kind of an explosive look to it, kind of like a Nikolai Feshin or something, and it's kind of fun to work out of that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's not what I did today, though.
Yeah, not for this one.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to hit play on this again. So we're back to the point where you're actually drawing now instead of just that quick headland that you were talking about.
Right. And what I'm doing is I'm finding landmarks. This is what I talk about a lot in the course, which is whatever it takes. If it's a pimple, use it. If it helps, find some place to measure down from. So a pimple might line up with the corner of the mouth, or horizontally, the pimple here is at the bottom of the ear. So I'm constantly just always looking for my proportional landmarks. So it's not always some like memorized kind of anatomy abstraction that we've all, we can talk about, but I won't go into. But it's actually just like that's why I say painting without a brain, because I'm going to continue to think this way even throughout the painting, which is I'm just measuring. It's like it's really boring. It sounds terrible. It sounds horrific. It is so much more romantic to say, oh, I've now worked, and I have done this, in art school where I've memorized perfect heads in every angle and be able to draw them out of your head. I basically have to throw all that away when I'm actually working from somebody in front of me, or I'm working from reference and I'm trying to really capture it. All of that stuff usually gets in the way rather than helpful, because I'm now not seeing truth, because it actually is telling me something. Oh, well, you can't see it, but draw it anyways because you know it's there. That kind of thinking can confuse a beginner badly, because you never know, well, when do I draw what I see, and then when do I use what I know? It's a big, big confusion factor. So when I was in art school, we were just learning how to see,
Mhm.
period, and capture what we see.
The-
Using all that stuff comes in later. And I even will talk about it in this demo, where it does come and make itself useful, all the things that you've learned. But in the beginning, you really don't want to turn it on. You want to keep that off and just try to see proportionally what you're looking at.
this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
There was a question in here that I don't know, maybe that might have just answered, but I want to get a bespoke answer for this one. Mafam in the chat was asking, I don't know much about portrait drawing and human anatomy. Can I just jump into this course?
It's made for you. It's
All
absolutely.
right.
In fact, I will say that the ones who don't have preconceived knowledge already, things that they already have ideas about how you're supposed to do this, and you just accept the way I'm giving you as a method, to just at least accept it while you try to go through the course. Just accept the method and say, okay, for right now, I'm just going to do it the way Morgan says. You will blow your mind about how well you're going to do, even with your very first attempt. I've now had the course out for long enough to see enough of the results coming out of this, and it's very satisfying for me to see. Yeah, just like it worked for me in art school, it's still working. It's still working because it's so broken down into just do this stage, do this stage, do this stage, and don't think, don't think, don't think. And so the less information you know, in a way, is better in this particular case. So yeah, please, don't feel like you have to know something. You don't have to know anything.
I
I
love
don't
it.
know anything. I still don't know anything. I have
I
no
highly doubt
idea.
this. You've got knowledge in you.
Okay,
We had a
here's no, no, I don't. I don't know anything.
oh
But and the reason why art is fun for me, and why just I mean, I paint every day for 40 years here. Been painting, painting, painting. And why do I still enjoy it? Because I'm still shocked at what I'm capable of doing with no brain. Because I when I finished this painting, I said to myself, that's kind of like, I don't even know how. it worked. Why does this work? Why does this system work? When in fact, it's so like really easy. It's not really that difficult to conceive how to do it. It's just you have to like unlearn some things. But then once you just accept it, I'm always shocked. Well, actually, if I just keep measuring, it kind of works out. It just it just works out. And I don't know why. It just works.
If you have a thing that's working, even if you don't know why, I don't think that's a bad thing. If it keeps working, that's
Yeah.
fine. Because what's that idea? The reality is the things that when you stop believing it, it's still there or whatever. It's that notion. Like, this is a truism. If you just keep measuring, it will work out.
It will. It will. Yeah.
There was someone paid it looks like 22 euros to ask you a question, Morgan.
Wow. Okay.
This is from a fantastic human who online goes by Atelier Pill. It says, "Hi guys, one question to Morgan. You had your teacher say, you are good, ready when you are consistent. What does that mean in your mind? Consistent in quality, style, technique? What's the time to say an artist is good?"
Okay, there's a couple of ways to answer that, and the way I viewed it for me, which was I was getting less and less critiques of me getting things wrong from my teacher. Fred Fixler, my teacher, would take tracing paper and put it over all of our drawings, and he would show you every single day where you went wrong. And it was always depressing to think, wow, I just still can't see. And most of it was still trying to rip all the problems of seeing I still had, which means I had to unlearn. The minute I walked into Fred's class at 15, I had already been drawing my whole life. I thought I was the hot stuff. And I acted that way the first day of class. I sat down and told him, I know all the muscles of the arm. And then he made me sit there and do it. And then he goes, here. And he gave me a piece of reference of an Indian. And he goes, here, draw this. And I thought I did amazing. And then he sat down with a piece of tracing paper and showed me, oh, it's just pause for a second.
Yeah.
Really what was going on and how I should have seen and drawn what I saw. And it was humbling day one.
Yeah.
Day one, I was like, okay, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And then for the time I was there, for like the 3 years I studied with him, it was constantly trying to reach that point that he had shown me that very first day, which is pure objective seeing. Pure objective seeing. Just it was incredible just how good he was at looking at something and just breaking it down into simplicity, just seeing it just for what it was, but also kind of doing it in a simplistic way, using squinting and measuring. So by the end of my 3 years, my goal was to draw better. Like one of the tests is to draw something upside down. Take a piece of reference, turn it upside down, draw it, and then turn it right side up, draw it again.
On
I
the same image.
Same head. So you take a head, turn it upside down, and just draw it. Because all of a sudden you're just looking at shapes.
Yeah.
You can't think. Your brain doesn't want to think of a nose upside down, right? So you're forced to just draw shapes. And I always used to be so depressed because I go, oh man, that's a good drawing. Too bad I didn't have anything to do with it because, my brain wasn't allowed to enter into the process. All I did was see and record.
Mhm.
And I turned the phone, then I would turn the paint, the reference right side up and draw it again. And sure enough, I got into my ideas of what an eye looks like, my ideas of what lips look like. And then I'd look at the two and go, I like the upside down one better. So I knew I finally reached the time to leave school when my right side straight up drawings from reference straight up were better than the upside down ones. Because
Yeah.
I knew I had finally trained my brain to think that way. But it took 3 years. It took 3 years to feel like I had actually been able to do that consistently.
Do you think
So
that some of
that's
that
really what it's about.
was some of that unlearning things, or was that just putting other learning on top of what you had already learned in this academic way?
I wish it was. I wish I was gaining more knowledge. Um, Honestly, the things you need to learn is not that much, really. It's like, rhythms, relationships, stuff like that, and all that. What really sets you apart from other people is your accuracy. Like still to this day, if I look at something, I still will judge it based on, yeah, it's beautiful, but doesn't look anything like what they were looking at, or there's something off.
Mhm.
So it's like for me, it really does have a lot to do with just unlearning stuff and learning to see objectively. I'm on like a broken one string banjo. That's all I keep saying. But
Yeah.
it really is to this day, sometimes I'll put up a little sign to remind myself. It's like one of the reasons why we squint. It's not just to eliminate detail. You're trying to trick your brain into not seeing all this stuff that it thinks it knows about. So
Yeah.
you're just like squinting for shapes most of the time, just so you can do that. So in a way, it's like turning it upside down still.
Mhm. Okay.
Anyways, we're never gonna get through
Well,
this demo.
we'll probably have to skip ahead in some at some point in there,
I'm too
because
wordy.
there was one question I think here that does apply directly to this particular topic. A person in the chat had asked, do you think it's important to have that level of critique every day? Something like purchasing courses with a critique from a professional. Do you think that a critique like what you got, Morgan, from your teacher, do you think that is that important, or can someone's self-critique and honest feedback loop with themselves actually supplant that?
I do. I mean, I was very self-critical, so it was like heaping even more insult on myself, getting this every day when I already, once he humbled me, I was humbled and I knew I couldn't do anything right. So then having him do it on a daily basis, it broke some people. That not everybody has the thick skin to take it every day and just feeling like I don't think so. Maybe it's not perfect for everybody. I mean, I'm not going to blanket and say everybody needs to be like broken down like in military school, kind of thing. Not
Your
everybody works that way.
proportions are terrible, maggot.
Exactly. He was pretty bad sometimes, He was pretty bad. I remember some people just getting up, taking their pads, crying, and running out of class and never coming back again. That was
Dang.
that was that happened. I
Yeah.
also had a few models jump off the platform crying and running and never coming back too, because he
Yeah.
would he would be sitting there telling them how to idealize. He goes, now notice how big her nose is, and he'd be like
No.
explaining
Uh-huh.
stuff out loud.
Yeah, and so some people they don't
So
have the way the
yeah,
tools inside of them to
he
process
had no
that.
couth
Yeah.
whatsoever.
All right, I'm gonna bring this painting back. Let's get back into it. So the text that was on screen just before this was saying this was ketchup and mustard.
I call it ketchup and mustard because I had really only two teachers in school, I could say, and one of the others was Fred brought in this great painter named Dan Cooper, who today is a big shot at Disney, but back then he was teaching us color, and he had us start off with ketchup and mustard, which is a a poor man's version of the Zorn palette.
Uh-huh.
Only we just use yellow ochre and alizarin crimson. So it's because of Dan and teaching me that way from the beginning of using a very limited palette. I decided, hey, when I do this, that's what I'll do. And I fell in love with it all over again. It's amazing to me. Like this painting behind me literally is black, white, yellow ochre pale, and alizarin crimson. Period. That's it.
Can we show that?
Never added it.
Can you grab it just to remind people who haven't seen that final result yet? So
I
you're
don't know
saying
if
that this is from that basic palette.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see very well, but again, kind of in my own mind, I'm thinking, how did I manage to get like it's not you're not seeing the fullness of the
Sure.
color, but there are lots of vibrations of warms and cools throughout this as well. Like at the very end of this demonstration, you'll see me just, but I also made sure to video my palette. So you'll start seeing my palette while I'm working so that you
Gotcha.
can really see I'm only using these four basic colors. And so it's amazing the variety that you can get out of just that. And why do that? Why tie your hands? If you look at the palette I use, I obviously have other colors that I normally use. Well, one, it just simplifies the process for the beginner so that you are not trying to juggle a bajillion different things. And I think adding a full palette to a beginner is just adding, more confusion to the
Mm.
whole thing. So why not just use four things, mix them ahead of time, which is what you'll see me do right now. You're about to see it. You can start playing it.
Okay.
Um, and then what I'll do is I'll just put them in a little jar so that I don't have to keep doing that. These little jars I get at Hobby Lobby. It keeps them fresh for like 3 or 4 or 5 days sometimes, so I don't have to keep remixing. So the whole course is super cheap in the sense of I'm not making you go out and buy. These are the cheapest colors you can get too. They're series one when it comes to like Windsor Newtons. So, you pre-mix like what I'm doing right there is I'm pre-mixing my darks. And I decided to have two darks for the shadow and like the dark hair or whatever. The eyebrow can be considered a dark, but it's not a shadow. But I basically am using two darks to limit, so I keep it simple. So we can just think like drawing still. That's the other idea is the further you get away from thinking painting is something different than drawing, it goes awry. So the whole process in the course is trying to teach you never stop thinking that the end of your brush is actually like charcoal, right? Every time you put down a stroke, it's charcoal. And it's you're measuring, you're thinking about what you're putting down, and you're drawing with, and it's easier to think that way if you got all this stuff pre-mixed. It's incredibly fast too, once you start getting the idea that, oh, okay, I've got my average for this, my average, and that's what we're doing. I'm mixing my average light for the actual overall skin tone that you're about to see me use. And you'll just see me keep dipping into that because in a way it's like the eraser and the darks are the charcoal. So it's like if I put down a stroke and it's not correct, I'll use the average to kind of correct it. I can use it that, and I'm still drawing. You're still drawing. By the time you're done, just sort of laying in your averages, you're practically done. It's pretty quick the way it eventually works for you. It's just a matter of learning about edges. Right there, you can see what I'm doing.
Is there you painted a little man?
I painted a little face of the guy that's Jeff, gonna be Jeff, and I'm just playing with the pre-mixed mixtures to see if I've got my averages correct. And I think after I saw that, I thought to myself, possibly I think you're gonna see me remix the average a little lighter because I said to myself, I think I'll go just a little lighter with the overall average. The overall average meaning you could use that for everything and then just go back and go a little darker and a little lighter,
Like
and you
something
got
like
like
like a
three
local
values
value.
then. So now
Local,
I'm mixing my halftone. So I'm not even going to have to mix that now. I'm pre-mixing that now so that I can just like, oh, when I see a halftone, I use my halftone. And you might think, well, isn't this going to look monochromatic? No. In the end, by the time you get you're drawing with the paint all in with the halftones, the average light, the average darks, average shadow, that kind of thing. And you've worked the drawing to be correct in that with just those few colors. It is like so easy to go in there and add your beloved highlights and add all the details and everything else that you would want to do, still using your limited palette, but it just puts it in its right and proper time. You now can say to yourself, yeah, I'm accurate with everything else I put down. Now it's so easy to go in there and take a little cooler version and put it in there and vibrate it and do those things that Stan likes. And in the end, it's so quick when you pre-mix like you see me doing. So I put some of them in little cups just now, and I'm about to begin so that I can keep putting out fresh paint as I don't have to do any more mixing really. And I'm starting with my darkest dark basically that I see in terms of shadow. And I'm squinting down right now, as you see, and I'm just using that average dark to just kind of like I'm using my brush as a charcoal pencil still, but I'm trying to refine it more. At some point in this demo, you're going to see that it looks like I'm messing around with that eye again later on before I've moved on. And it's because I feel like I was off on my measurement of getting overall, you know, iris a little over more to the right based on some plumb lines that I was a little off on because I was sort of rushing. And I just felt like it wasn't getting correct. So I just like a drawing. It's not a painting issue, it's a drawing issue. You're constantly trying to refine the drawing. So when you don't have to keep mixing, as you notice, I'm just going to keep dipping into that one thing. It's literally like watching me with a piece of charcoal, and I'm just going to keep drawing, drawing, drawing. At some point, once I get enough of the darks in, I'm going to feel like maybe putting in, some lights to kind of establish my light tones and stuff. But since I've already pre-mixed it, I know I'm already going to be fine. Like I don't have to do any guessing or
Yeah,
anything like that about what I'm going to mix. Is
a
there
huge amount
anything?
of.
Go
Feel
ahead.
free.
No, go ahead.
A huge part of, or a huge portion of your process is purely intended to get out of your own way, is what it
Yeah.
seems like at every single step of the way.
Trying to get out of your own way and also eliminate parts of painting that people get bogged down in by just going, doesn't have to be a problem. Like it can be simpler, it can be cheaper, it could be easier, it can be simpler, so that you're allowed to just see objectively and measure. That was the whole point of the course, is really
Mhm.
just to drill that into everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember going through some of the videos as they were being edited and seeing that be just kind of a constant refrain in there.
It's
Uh,
repetitive, I know. Yeah.
no, but in a good way. I think like it's the idea of it wanting to really drill in how important this is. It's not that it's like you're falling back on some wisdom that has no place to be said. Like, no, you're saying the thing that is the most important to address in that time. It's a good thing. Uh,
Right.
Everyone pretty much collectively in the chat, it in all capitals, lost their mind at the idea of doing the small test portrait on the palette. They had never like heard of this idea or thought to do it from some accomplished artists that I know that are in here in this chat to other people who I don't know if they're absolute beginners. They're collectively losing their minds. So
Well, okay. Well, it just makes sense. That's why we all talk about using a gray palette, right? So you can see like a neutrality kind of thing underneath your colors. Um, so the other idea too there is, besides making a little head, is you also have it behind gray so that you really can judge. Okay, if you've toned your canvas similar in that regard with a toning already, when you go from here to here, you should see the same thing happen. So um, I always tone my canvas usually. I don't usually use white as my basis because my palette is not white.
yeah, you'd be breaking what that value and like
Right.
hue judgment is when you go to look across the two. I have
Exactly.
two questions from the chat here. So the Black Knight Sword asked, so should you try to avoid blending on the canvas? Do you avoid any sort of like a mixing? Are you trying to maintain those colors that you mixed on the palette? Is that I think what they're asking?
Am I trying to maintain what I pre-mixed? In other words,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I kind of lost. Um, as far as blending goes, no, no blending yet.
Okay.
That's one of the things throughout the course you'll see that I'm trying to keep it a little more on the flat side, like almost cut out. You're gonna see as we go on, once I start putting in my average lights and average halftones, next to things.
Hmm.
Because when we say blending, I'm just assuming they mean when you have one color and another color, do I blend yet, kind of thing. I mean, you can if you're really like great about edges and you know exactly what you're doing, then I suppose you'll probably watch me not realizing I'm doing it, but I perhaps will do that. But I in the course, I'm pretty strict about trying to get that flat posterized look. That's if you can get it to look correct without blending, the blending is so much better because it's based off the drawing underneath it that's stronger because it already worked in a posterized way,
Mhm.
and then it's just a matter of, you know, blending and getting your four basic edges that everybody's heard of a million times. And it's so much easier to do that when you've got a clean kind of thing going. Blending makes everything dirty, makes everything kind of, so what you'll see me do is instead of blending like the average and a dark, you're going to see me put like stripes of other color between it, varying in value, getting darker, so that when you do your blending, it's not so dirty looking. It actually is like you're blending real, like, color that won't look, dirty. That's part of the reason too for just holding off. Don't blend so quickly so that you can get pure color in there instead.
That's fair.
But it'll make more sense when you see me go more.
For those of the people in the chat who might not know, what do you mean by posterizing? Or in
Posterizing.
posterized?
Well, anybody that nowadays probably has seen on, like,
Photoshop
if they
filter.
use Photoshop, if you use posterize, it's like it pretty much shows you exactly what posterize is. It breaks everything down into flat blocks of value and color, and it averages everything out, and it has a hard, sharp line between all those transitions, and it just looks like a poster, like the old train posters are a great example of that. And our teacher, Fred Fixler, back then was really getting us in this old German poster artist, Holwein, who did stuff during World War II for the Germans. But they were beautiful posterized, like sharp edge, but just incredibly nicely designed. And so if you can try to hold off on your blending and try to kind of get that posterized look for as long as possible, it helps you to really check your design as well about shapes until you, and then you just can let go and go crazy if you want to and lose edges and everything else. But so now what I'm doing, you're already seeing me now move into um, adding some of the halftones actually that are closest to the darks to do that very thing later on, where the halftones rather than the average light, just a little bit darker version of that, the halftone to set up later on when I'm going to, like, um, soften those edges more, and I'll have a little bit more of a clean look because I'm putting those halftones down right now. I this demo is me doing a simple version of how I normally paint. You're seeing stuff that I do to this day. I didn't break it down in that really strict way that in the course where I really hold my hands constantly, tie them to not do anything too advanced.
That's a hard
This
one. That's the eternal thing for
It
teaching.
was the hardest thing in the world to do this course, really, because I had to keep thinking like a beginner. How will this help them, do this in stages rather than try to. I don't want to dazzle people with, oh, look at I can juggle 18 balls all at once,
Yeah,
and
you would
here
teach them how to throw
now
three.
you try it. I literally am trying to just slowly work two balls, three ball, four, at a
Mhm.
very slow pace. So I'm still trying to do that a little bit right now for today's demonstration. But you will see that I'm already like putting in a half tone before I've used the whole average light up, But I'm still just dipping into those pre-mixed values, and that's the thing to be learned. Now notice I'm putting a pure white that I see in the painting that's going to be there. His collar just pops, and it's going to be that big pop in in the final paint. So you want to put that in as soon as you can to start getting your range of values correct, so that you can really start to gauge. Now I'm just dipping into the average light, and I'm starting to, do maybe, where the lightest light is right now, sort of establishing those key key spots of value so that I can already see if I'm in the right range of whether anything needs to be adjusted, even with my mixtures. There's no reason why you can't go back and pre-mix, remix what you did as far as averages go that are in your little cup. If you're painting and you go, overall this is too orange, or overall, I think I'm just going to go put it all back out and add a little more black to it and gray it down, or you'll see me throughout the course. I just show you every adjustment I feel like I need to make so that you can see, it's not you can't just always do it perfect, every single time right off the bat. We all do trial and error sometimes. So for me, mixing up those pre-mixed values is a trial and error in a little way where you start to paint with it and you really then realize it's a little too yellow, or whatever. So I'll go back and remix it. In this particular case, I think I was pretty much happy with the pre-mixes that I did.
Yeah, after that one small adjustment when you painted the
Yeah,
small
yeah.
test face.
So now I'm just laying in my average light, and it'll just start to come together because I'm not really having to think too much about mixing. I think a lot of students get really thrown off by what's going off on the palette.
They do.
They spend so much time worrying about the palette time that they're not doing enough thinking on the canvas about the more important thing. So that's the whole point of this, is you can kind of just feel free, you're just like, okay, I'm just going to use this and I'm going to go with it, and not get freaked out if it starts to look like a comic book,
Yeah.
or a comic like too monochromatic or too
It's like
flat.
cell shaded kind of image.
I mean, in the
Like, that's
end,
fine.
it's not going to look like a comic, right? It's gonna have full edges, full value, full color, all of that. But if you just have patience and just follow the stages that help keep it in line, and keep it simple in the beginning, you can just rest easy. It's going to be easy to get to this stage, but you can't get to this and get it to look as correct as you want it to if you don't just take your time. And that's a whole nother thing that I like during the time of making the video. I do a lot of talking about one of the problems I have seen in art instruction overall, and the confusion that a lot of students have had, because I had it in the beginning in art school, was I would have, or Fred would do a demonstration every day. He'd do a 20-minute demonstration from the figure. He'd do a 20-minute demonstration from head drawing. And then he'd also do 20 minutes of quick sketch demonstrations when it was that class. Anyways, he was trying to demo for us, so we would see him work.
Mhm.
But after a while, um, I was having some trouble because I was trying to draw a 3-hour drawing the way he drew a 20-minute drawing. And a lot of us, I think, were doing this, where you would go too quick in the beginning because we saw him go fairly quick because he's trying to get to an almost finished head in 20 minutes. But I've got 3, maybe 6 hours to work on the same head, same model. And if I try to just do the block in as fast as he did and move on to the next stage, I would always feel like, man, I'm just so inaccurate with everything. And with all this time on my hands, all I'm doing is fixing things I should have just gotten correct in that first 10 minutes instead of me rushing it the way I thought was you're supposed to paint or draw. And I've come to realize that a lot of things that we show people, like, look at me, look what I'm doing, um, is we don't realize that we don't need to rush. If we know you're going to have like a photo to work from and you have all the time in the world, there's no need to try to do a block in the way maybe I would show you a demo, and an hour and a half demo. It would be like so wrong. I might take an hour and a half normally if I was doing a 6-hour drawing for you or a 6-hour painting. I would maybe spend an hour and a half just trying to get the drawing correct. Oh,
Mhm.
just really work at it, work at it. So that once I start really getting into it and I know I've got 4 hours to go, I'm not correcting bad placement or bad measuring. I really feel confident and I just can like really put my time and get all the way to the end. And it's all about how much time do you have? So if you're in an art school situation and you've got a model and you know it's a 3 hour class and you know about an 2.5 hours to actually do it, you have to know I'm going to spend this much amount of time before I even start going in with darks and putting in shadows and putting in the full value of things. I'm really going to spend just an hour and a half just measuring, right? And then time it that way. Well, you're going to have to make concessions when you're doing that. You're going to have to say to yourself, okay, I've gotten it about as accurate as I can with the time allotted, and I'm going to move on now. And you do that. But you don't start off a drawing like the way you would for a 20-minute drawing. You for a longer pose, you think completely different.
Mhm.
And I do demos in the instructional video. If anyone actually makes it through all 27 hours or whatever it is, you will see I try to cover it all for you. I try to like say, you know, this is a really important thing to try to get straight. And I do some charcoal demonstrations of heads to kind of really like get to this core idea of you think completely different for a 5 minute sketch as opposed to a 20-minute sketch, as opposed to a 1 hour drawing, as opposed to a 6 hour drawing. It's the thinking really changes quite considerably. And so a lot of times I've watched students start a long drawing as though they're going to do practically a 15-minute sketch, and then they just sit there with a mess for the next 3 hours, or for 2.5 hours that they might have because they started too quickly and didn't think more correctly. So what you watched me do here, I knew I wanted to get this done in about 4 hours or something in the end, and I knew I'd speed it up to kind of do that. So I took my time, the amount of time I had decided was going to go into the accuracy of that drawing. I could have, if I wanted to, if I was going to do this for gallery or something, I might have spent even more time just making sure that I've got everything covered in terms of length of head and all, just double check. Like a carpenter, Fred used to say, like a carpenter just keeps remeasuring before he cuts the wood, remeasure again. Just
Measure
make sure
twice,
that you,
cut
you don't
once.
want to you don't want to ruin a piece of wood. Well, it's the same thing. Is like, if you have any doubt, throw another plumb line down, double check yourself. There is no greater joy in my life than after like putting down this drawing and painting and you'll see, well, no, you didn't. I've got too much stuff on the but you'll see I'll still put up every so often I'll double check myself. Is the nostril lining up with, all the way down here? And every time I'll go up, oh yeah, right up to the corner of the eye, it goes right down. Oh, right at the corner of the mouth.
Mhm.
And when you do that and you look at it, you got it right.
It's so
You're just like,
fulfilling.
oh, okay, good. I'm still okay.
There was a
Like,
time, Morgan, I was drawing something and I had to take a photo of it to send to the person that I was making the piece for as the commission. And I held my phone up to take a photo of it, and I had already put a solid face into it and everything with a good value structure. And the little thing that pops up that identifies where a face is, the little square in the frame, the camera finder,
right,
identified the face on
as a
my
real
drawing.
face.
Yeah, and I was like, I did it.
That's true. I've had that happen too. Yeah.
It's fulfilling.
It is. Yeah, at least the camera thinks you got it right, so that's good. But
Uh,
yeah, for me, that's a real fulfilling moment, and so that's why to the very end, I'm still correcting because it just for me, it's my personality maybe. That matters to me, because I know I've gotten as close to the truth of the thing I'm looking at, and I'm trying to find the truth of it, the truth of that person. Is it going to look like him?
mhm.
So that's what I'm doing.
There was a thing. If you're okay with a sidestep for a moment, I
Hmm.
wanted to hop over into the course to kind of just show a little bit of what's actually in there. We've talked about a few topics a few techniques and skills that you deploy to make your paintings. I want to make sure that people know that those things are actually discussed within the course by seeing those in here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to bring up the course page here for you guys. For those of you guys who don't know, there's a whole sale that's been going on for this month so far. We've talked about it with an ad at the beginning of this video. We've talked about it in every single live stream we've done so far. You can save 20% on this course. You should do it. It's great. But I want to show in here. So for the people who are terrified of color mixing, you do actually go over that in here. Even though you don't do color mixing while you're actually working on the painting in the same way as some other artists might teach or do. You do teach people the basics of actual values, your value scales, just working in grayscale by itself as a core exercise to show that you can understand that before then showing them how to mix common skin tones and then go a little bit farther into paint, mixing colors. Then you go into that squinting that you were talking about to teach people how to identify large areas, identify hue, value structure before going into that, and then going into much deeper topics that you would expect to be taught in a painting course. For those people who are absolute beginners, like we had asked some questions earlier, those things are in here. They are absolutely throughout this course. Morgan will take you from being a person who doesn't know how to paint to being a person who knows how to get out of their way and let the painting just happen rather than you stopping yourself and getting in your own way. So I just wanted to make sure that people know, and then I'll bring this video back on up.
Yeah, and I know I'm emphasizing that this is painting without a brain all the time, and the my point is that that is how you need to start off, and you don't graduate someday into, oh, someday I'm going to use my brain all the time. To this day, I don't do anything different in regards to this whole idea. But as I show in the course, I really get into it, and I show the proper time to use the Riley method. I mean, I was trained the Riley method from the dude. I know the Riley method, and I know when you're supposed to use it and when you're not supposed to use it. And you're not supposed to use it in the beginning. It's not useful. It will throw you off. But if you use it when it's like at the right time, I show you that. I show you, wow, now look what it does. Like look how it strengthens everything and ties things together. But if you start off trying to use it too soon, you have now eliminated observation again. You've just taken it out of the course and you're doing something else, which is fine. I mean, but that's not what I'm teaching. I'm teaching how to draw what you see and get to the truth of what you're looking at. That's the point. There's plenty of other kinds of ways of painting, out of your head and all that kind of thing. Also, the whole idea of like learning the things at Loomis, so that the whole Loomis method that has been called the Loomis method, I have I have a lot of like disagreement
Do you have thoughts,
with
concerns, and questions?
yeah, I don't like calling it a method almost, it's information. The Loomis information that he has in his books. Of course, I studied all of that. That was one of the first things Fred had us looking at when it came to learning another kind of thinking that will come in handy later on during the process, but not, I'm sitting there and suddenly not really you're only like half looking at the model and half thinking, about all the stuff you've been memorizing. That isn't helpful either. But man, it comes in helpful later on down the line when maybe you're learning about the planes of the head and how to chisel something a little bit more. And you're thinking about all those things later on, once a lot of the observation has taken place on your canvas, then you're able to use those things so much quicker. Same thing goes for color. I will go into how to get that broken color look that I do all the time, where I try to give a vibration to it. I learned a lot of that from studying Norman Rockwell originals. That was like my first introduction as a student. I remember we went to an exhibit in Palm Springs that Fred took us to, and it was like I was like my mind exploded at some of these early Rockwells from the 20s, and it was just like one hand would have like a mosaic of color in it, and you just step back 5 feet, and it was like the most
It's all
realistic
average.
hand. It
Yeah.
just looked like a most realistic hand you ever saw in your life. And then you'd come back up to it and you'd see all these little tiles of color varying in warmth and coolness and in hue. And I started learning very early on. Realism doesn't mean getting in there and doing every wrinkle, every little tiny, hair, getting in there to get the realism in the mindset of like Rockwell and all the greats is color variation within warms and cools within the human flesh because we are made of tons of color. Like just I always look at my hand and I'm always amazed at the greens and the purples that the veins create under the skin. My knuckles always have a little bit more redness to them. There's just tons of color going on just with the average local color, plus whatever the warmth or coolness of the light now hitting those colors, and you learn all these little variations that are going on, and it's going to make that hand look way more realistic with hardly any rendering going on by just here you put me full set.
Yeah.
I'm pointing to my hand. And unfortunately, video like digital may not pick up the way
It
your eye
compresses.
can from
Yeah.
from nature, but the cools and the warms and all that combined with a warmer light or a cooler light, what it does to those colors as well. All of that can be going down later on. Like I go into it, but I certainly wouldn't want to like throw that at people as a beginner, in the first stages of learning how to paint and think that somehow that's going to make sense to you. You're going to just have a mess, right? So
Mhm.
that's again proper time. It comes later,
Yeah.
all of that comes later.
If this was if this is a walking course or a human movement course, the beginning of this thing is going to be you teaching people one foot in front of the other, and then for so much of this, it will be one foot in front of the other. You're not going to say, anyway, so what you're going to want to do later is while you're competing at the Olympics on the pommel horse, but then we're going to take a step back. Anyway, one foot in front of the other. No, it's just
Right.
it's just teaching people to walk. That's the whole
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just for beginners necessarily too.
No.
I mean, I don't think anybody would be hurt, even if they're advanced, at retracing their steps once in a while and seeing how much they've let enter into their work that is maybe not always beneficial to their observation skills.
There's a
Like
lot of bad habits.
yeah, it's a
We
lot of
fall
bad
back on
habits we
things.
all get into, and it's like one of those things that I'm always paranoid about. And then, like, I believe you have to squint. You can't see me. Uh, I didn't have another camera to show my face the whole time. But if I were to just show you my eyes while I'm painting, you would see this all the time, like that. I'd be squinting, like, and then
Getting
I'd paint,
close.
and then I'd
Uh-huh.
squint. And the reason I'm doing that is I am still not trusting myself after 40 years to just sort of like look at something with my eyes open. I know that as soon as I keep my eyes open, I am going to start getting in there and noodling something and getting into something that doesn't need to be gotten into. I'll wander around, and sometimes I'll just stop myself as I'm sitting here going, "Oh my gosh, I haven't been squinting for like the last half hour." And
I like
I get panicked. I panic. I go, oh my God, I probably have to redo everything I just did.
you
That
have the opposite concern of a person with like a health problem. You're hoping that you're squinting and you're
yeah.
someone wishing that they had lost their glasses.
Well, I do wear glasses now. I've always needed a little bit of glasses, probably my whole life, right?
Mhm.
But I purposely wouldn't wear them so that I almost had a natural squint going on
Mhm.
all the time. I finally had to start wearing glasses because I would take a look. Sometimes I put my glasses on and look at my painting. And
You're
it's
like,
like,
oh
oh
god.
no, what was I doing? I actually wasn't able to see my painting very well. So I was realizing that I was letting some edges go that should have been softened and stuff because in my eyesight was telling me it was soft, but I would go like this and go, oh no, it's
Oh,
not,
that's hard as hell. Yeah.
Yeah. But to this day, I have like, I always write myself notes. No, that's not it. But I've got notes usually sitting here, like this is the most recent one. Calligraphy, squint plus measure. That like
Do you
I
want to
have
decode that one for us, or
I
did you just like
have
activate a Winter Soldier somewhere?
exactly. Go, 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 go. Uh, um, calligraphy plus squinting plus measuring are like the three things I think I need to just be doing while I'm painting. And that's for me working on like gallery pieces that I'm going to work for weeks on, right? I'm every day trying to make sure I don't get too far off from those three things that I need to do every time I put my brush to the canvas. Like
I
I'm
see.
constantly reminding myself. I'm not so cocky about it, thinking, "Oh, I got it down now." I'm just like, "No, I'm an idiot." I've got to keep reminding myself all these years still. Don't let your brain get into it, and I'll listen to music or the TV will have it on, and I'll let my brain kind of like be listening to a story going on, and then I'm worried, like that there are times when if left to my devices, I might start copying the photo. Like that's the
Mm,
worst thing that can happen, right? That's the worst thing that can happen is if I'm working for photography, copying what I see. Because that's not the same as observation. That to me, copying is just sort of like getting into this lazy mode of just looking and just but I'm no longer squinting to look at a shape or try to make a shape. And the reason I use the word calligraphy on there is and I try not to use brushes that are so worn out that you can't use for the purposes of making a beautiful shape. This is a nice squared off, like, brush that's not worn out. I have tons of, I mean, you can't see me in here, but I've got these everywhere
oh,
and I
jeez.
can't get rid of them, but
Just in case.
these are all the ones that no longer work because I can't, I can't, I don't know what to do with them. But that's probably like $6,000 right there.
Yeah.
These brushes cost a fortune, so it's hard to just say, "Oh, throw it away." But at the same time, I will not be able to get calligraphy going on anymore because the shape of the brush itself will not allow me to make a nice pretty shape with it. It's just going to be scraggly or whatever. But now
Mhm.
I want to be able to do that like Lion Decker beautiful shape thing with every stroke. So and then I can't just do that thinking, oh, that's all I need to do. But I also have to squint. So I know where I'm putting that beautiful stroke. And I got to make sure that I'm measuring to make sure it's in the right place. All of the things that you need to do comes down to calligraphy, squinting, and measuring
Mhm.
every stroke. That's what it comes down to.
Okay.
And so, anyways,
No, like I said, someone in the chat had actually just been asking, "What do you mean by calligraphy?" And then you went ahead and answered that one. That was great. You heard them.
okay.
Morgan, if you want, we do have a lot of things that people no longer have a massive use for here in our office. We have all of Marshall's old art books. If you want to have, it's like a Morgan Weistling paintbrush library, we'll take them. We'll give them a home.
You know, I could tell stories now. I could tell stories, but I had let's just put it this way. A long time ago, I had a run-in with Thomas Kincaid. Quick
Okay,
story. He invited me to his studio up north. He wanted me to work for his company. It didn't work out. But
you
at the
don't say.
time, I was still an illustrator, and I just thought, "Oh, I'll be a millionaire." So I went and visited him, and I really didn't even know that much about him at the time. He was already a millionaire. But I went into his studio, and I saw like this, right? Like these were all over the place, only they had white tape just on the ends with some scribbling on them.
Okay.
And I noticed he was using Series 7 Winsor Newton brushes. Now, anybody out there who knows watercolor, and I used to work at an art store, those are the most expensive brushes on earth, right? I can't even
Okay.
imagine what they would cost now. But these are like, $80 brushes, like, that size. And I was like, I saw that on the tips, dried dried paint, and it ruined them. He
Uh-huh.
had ruined the Series 7 brush. And I go, I gotta ask Thomas, what's the deal? You've ruined these brushes, and what's the little? He goes, oh, every time I finish a painting and I make a note which brushes I used, we take the brush, put it in a little glass case, put the painting that it was sold on, and we sell those for like $400. I'm like, oh my
Dang.
God,
I mean,
you don't even
he
have
was a
brushes.
businessman through and through.
Yeah, he had nothing, no write-offs. Everything was, you know.
Goodness.
I was like, oh man.
You said the paint on the tip of it, like he had
He let
ruined the
it,
brushes. I
yeah.
imagined him like, this is the last mark that I did on that.
He
Bop,
would dip
and
it.
it was like a wax seal on
Yeah,
the thing, like never
yeah.
to be used again.
Never to be used again. Somewhere out there's all these people with paintings with, because he said when they would buy the original, they always would want the brushes that were used, kind of thing.
Certainly.
You know, it's like, yeah, man. That's amazing. That's marketing.
Interesting.
I
Okay, so
probably
you're
just gave a few people an idea right now.
well now I'm thinking every time I edit a Proko video, I need to take the mouse that I did it with.
Yeah,
So, like I'm gonna
yeah.
bust out the bottom sensor of it and put that up on a wall somewhere.
I figured you were already saving all of Stan's tissues and stuff he uses,
Yeah, no,
so
that
yeah,
absolutely happens. You say that as
yeah,
a joke, but that's not that far off. All right, so here in this painting, you've gone through many more things. You've been working through those blocked out areas that you had already identified with the rough
yeah,
drawing and the second drawing earlier, and it looks like
yeah.
you're going through and you're not sticking to just those pre-mixed paints in some areas. Do you think you're already at the stage where you can start adding more in, or what's going on here?
As the averages have now covered most of it, and I started I was unfortunately got off track here, but I'm still using just the limited palette. But what I've done is probably added a little bit more alizarin crimson to the mix, although I don't see it there still. But I will, like making the end of the nose a little redder, put a little more red into the cheeks. All that stuff is I haven't actually done that too much yet, but you'll see me start to do that as I start to integrate a little bit more color vibration into it. Right now, I am just using those premixes. I'm not looking at my palette looking like it's too far off from mixing, variation. I'm about to clean the palette again a little bit. Maybe I'll do something now, but um, as I was talking about something else, you probably saw it at a stage. If you were to go back, you probably would see um, like stripes of color, where I was still being very, very hard edged and posterized, but I was starting to turn form with just planes and using my halftone that's pre-mixed to give it, a little bit more of a variation of form. It's no longer posterized anymore. I've already gone into some of the edges and stuff too, but there's far more edge work that needs to take place. I do always put in as much values of most like little tiles of color before I'm gonna go ahead and completely like maybe soften something like his cheek that's headed into shadow. All of that, it needs some very subtle working later on. You'll see me like I'll get in there and really start to soften and get it much more close to the four kinds of edges that you need to like try to get into a painting. The reason I love heads too, everybody should learn how to do heads. Whether you're going to do this forever or not, doesn't matter. It gives you the variety of everything you need to learn to paint anything else. Anything else that you're going to paint, a head covers it.
Certainly.
And I mean, you can learn to be a good landscape painter if you treat a landscape much the way you would treat the form of a fade. You've already got it covered. Like many of the things that you need to know edge-wise and value-wise, all of those things will apply. But the head really just brings it into, man, if you could just nail heads, you could do pretty much anything after that.
Yeah, because like you've talked about the thing that you like to do with your paintings is make that almost entirely observational before you start to put in your knowledge on top of that thing. So the
Right,
same concepts all apply here, breaking things down into basic value structures,
right.
all of these things, relationships, that's all in there, which are all things that you cover in your course. And that
Yes,
course,
and it's got it all, and so that's why I'm not too worried that I've talked over some of the important areas right now. But I go back and if you guys want to ask questions, please. I'm more than open
I
to
have
answering anything.
I have some stored up for you here.
Okay, yeah, let's get over it and
All
do it.
right. You want to get over it?
Well, I mean, get it over with.
Okay. Okay. So there, I'm gonna go in reverse order here. So reward the people who have been here recently,
Mhm.
with getting their questions answered. So Brody Swift in the chat had asked, "Hey Morgan, do you ever work with gouache? Was that a part of your training before going into oils? Any chance for a gouache demo in your course? I'll give you $50." They said. I'll tell you
Oh
what, you
man.
guys.
Okay, that's all I need. You had me at $50. Okay.
Morgan's out here, painter's hat in hand, painting for dollars.
Let's do it now. Can we add another 2 hours to this live stream? I
I'll
want
put
that 50 bucks.
I'll put
Yeah.
another goal on here, a tip goal. You guys do the $50. We'll make this happen.
It's a great question. Gouache is much more popular now, I noticed. There's some guys out there that are just knocking it out of the park with their gouaches right now. I love Sasquatch, that guy,
Oh, was it Squash
yeah,
Squatch?
Sasquatch, gouache, Sasquatch. I always have a hard time saying it, but
Yeah, it's like
Sasquatch, right?
I'll pull up the name
And
here for everybody.
yeah, no, he's great. And uh, but yes, I learned to paint in gouache. That's what Fred taught us. He was a gouache painter as an illustrator. So the first thing I ever did was learn how to paint in gouache. And it's funny because in gouache he would always have us do exactly what I'm doing in this demo. We would mix up our averages and put them in little cups just like this, and we would have everything pre-mixed in gouache. And the kind of things you have to learn to paint in gouache is so perfectly just brings you right into oil. I never really had him teach me oil. There was a class he offered. I refused to take it. I was against. He was teaching the Riley palette,
Okay.
and at the time, I was also taking classes with Dan Cooper, and he was just teaching us to see color everywhere, and I was just loving learning how to see color. And then Fred wanted us to pre-mix all, like hundreds of these pre-mixed values, and it was so rigid. I couldn't stand the idea of doing it, and I actually stood up to him and I just told him I'm not going to take this class. It was part of the whole thing he wanted to do, and I was just like, first of all, that was going to cost me a fortune to pre-mix all this because we were going to have to do all the mixing, and a lot of the guys did it. I didn't do it. And instead, I just stuck with the gouache, and that's what I did. And he taught us how to just paint with a full palette and gouache and pre-mix, and being able to wet it with a damp brush and get your edge work and all of that.
Mhm.
It's like it's still one of my. I did a full movie poster using that. I have a whole movie poster when I first started doing posters in my first couple of years. I was only comfortable doing gouache, so I was trying to do 30 by 40 paintings for movie posters in gouache. Didn't work out too well most of the time because one of the things gouache is not good for is huge paintings. It's great for studies, little paintings. But I still do gouaches when I go out and do landscape painting. I only do gouaches in landscape. That's the only way to go for me. I love doing them.
I've never seen you work in gouache before. I'm gonna have to poke through your stuff and see more of
Oh,
that. I'd be
I
really
wish I had
interested.
that. I just recently, my buddy Greg Pro gave me back the painting that I had got given to his father. Um, and it's the very first Winona Ryder movie she ever did. She was like 13 years old. And I did this whole movie poster just totally in gouache.
Huh.
And if I wish I had it to show you, I think I put it away.
There was
But
there was one person here in the chat earlier, Psycho Spence, who said, "I became aware of Morgan because of the art he did for the Starship Troopers pinball machine."
Yeah, yeah. That was a fun one. Yeah.
Would you say that was in a similar kind of time period for your career?
Uh, I mean, I was just an illustrator at the time. That was when I had moved away from gouache and I was using oils. I was doing oils for movie posters, which is still kind of crazy. But I was probably the only guy doing oils at the time, still trying to do that. Like I did Last Action Hero all in oil, which
Mhm.
was nuts. But I just found I was way quicker than gouache for sure.
Okay. No, it's interesting. I, I
Yeah.
I I love hearing about people who worked in the media arts in this kind of way. There's always so many interesting things in that.
Let's see
Uh,
if okay.
yeah,
So
feel free to poke around there.
I don't have any of my heads or anything that are here. They're stored away. But like when I go out and do gouaches and stuff, I just do them like that. And like this was over in Carmel, Monterey. I don't know. It looks a little
Nice.
washed out here. That's washed out. You can't really see.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Cameras
kind of
being
like.
what they are.
But as you can see, that was just from life, and it's amazing how much detail you can get into with a plein air painting as opposed to oil, where it's just a bunch of blobs usually, and you can only hope to get some kind of degree of finish. But
What is it that you think makes it
it's
work
kind of
more in that way?
well, because it dries. You can work over dry paint immediately, whereas with oil, you can't do too much overlaying in a landscape painting from life. The only guy I have ever seen really pull that off well is a guy named Matt Smith, the famous landscape painter. I know there's another Matt Smith, but
The no eyebrows actor man. Yeah.
the one that I know personally with Matt Smith, he goes out there and does these little plein air paintings, and he gets a degree of finish with thick, beautiful strokes and everything. But at the same time, they get so much detail, and it's just so true to his values and everything. It just goes beyond the normal plein air painting. I'm
Mhm.
kind of bored with most plein air painting. When I see a Matt Smith, man, those really like are amazing to me. It
I've got
just
his Instagram handle up here on the screen for you guys.
moral
And then
rock.
in the chat so you guys can check that work out there.
But
Yeah.
one of the nice things about like whenever I know it's just so
Is
washed out. It's so washed out. But
it's gouached
um
out?
yeah, but if I go up close, maybe you can see the kind of shapes that you can like actually carve into. This is Morro Rock in Morro Bay, California.
It's a
You
huge
can
one.
you can see the edge work and stuff that you can get just in a quick little landscape, you know, quick. And same goes for if you're doing like a painting of a head or something too. You can get all the edge work, everything because of the fact that you can just keep going over dry paint and wetting it if you have to. Acrylics are not like that. Acrylics, the edge work is impossible because it dries and you can't do anything about it. That's why gouache is
Mhm.
so superior. I'm glad to see gouache come back and be so popular now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was responsible for it, but I agree. I've seen this like in a way where it's ticked up much more. Uh,
Get that thing going still.
oh, you want this video? Yeah, here I'll bring this back up on screen. Uh, I was trying to backdoor you into another question that someone had given.
Okay.
So Dan Robinette had asked, I just started oil painting. How do you decide when to let the paint sit and dry, or just keep painting on it while it's wet?
Well, good question. That is something that you have to know when you're ready to do it. In my course, I think that might be the part that a lot of people are a little confused at times. Because I did those demos. There's no numerous demos in the course. I do them, and I would sit here and go until 4 in the morning sometimes until I was done with it. So I've never had them be dry. So you could see me take my finger like I like to do and soften edges even, because was paint was still wet. So in my dream and hope was that people were going to have the same experience. If you let it dry, you have to learn how to then kind of put some more of that paint that you pre-mix back down again so that you can maybe get a soft edge. Because the other way is to just dry brush it, and just sort of scumble over the dry paint, which is perfectly fine too. It's another look that I also like to go for. But like even if you look at the screen right now, a little while ago, you might have seen me fussing with where the cheek touches the background, right where near where my brush is right now. And
Mhm.
I was losing a half tone into the background color, right? And I was just sort of just letting the brush kind of flick into the background so that I would starting to get a lost and found kind of variations of edges going down that whole side of the face, right? That is so easy to do when the painting's still wet. So, it's like easy peasy. Just do that with your brush or your finger, and you can do this interplay between soft and hard and lost and found, do all that kind of stuff when it's all still wet. If that painting had been dry, I would have still been able to do that, but I would have mixed it and kind of like dry brush that into the background instead of the fact that it mixed kind of nice. So there is no with oil, there's nothing that you need to panic about if something all dries or should you let it dry. If things have gotten out of control and you're kind of like feeling like, oh my gosh, it's just a big slippery mess, stop, let it dry.
Yeah,
Just let it
come back.
dry so that
It'll
you
be
can then
there.
go over it and try to fix your drawing, clean up your values, then it's perfect that it's dry, But if everything's going great, just finish it, there's probably no need to let it dry.
Another question that I think connects to this is also from the same person, who I think that they're aware of some oil painting things because of the question that they ask here. Dan Robinet had asked, "Are you doing any fat over lean here, thinning with turpentine to start and extra oil later on
Oh yeah, and I get into that too. I
in the course?"
In the course, yeah. I mean, you will see that I will use my mixture, and I kind of didn't talk about it. I have a little cup next to me, and if you replay this, because I show up the bottles of the things I use, and I use a mixture now. I change a lot. Galcid light and Gamsol, and I do a little mixture in a cup. And yes, in the beginning, and I did that even with this painting. I just wasn't mentioning it. I thin the paint, so I'm starting off thin, and I slowly build it up. Like right now, what you're seeing is probably pure paint, no mixture of thinning at all. And the longer I'm working on a painting, it just gets down to thick paint at the end. So you're going with thinning, getting a little thicker, and you just keep going that route. And everything in the light gets thicker, thicker, thicker. Anything that's in the shadow or dark stays thin. That's for sure. You just want that thickened thing going on so that only the light areas are getting the thicker paint and catching the light. Because what it does is it catch highlights and all kinds of stuff, and it's just really fun to look at for any viewer to see a painting that has some of that juicy kind of brushwork. And I'll at the very end of this, I even start getting into palette knife, and I'll just put in some palette knife work to kind of thicken it up even more, but only in the light.
Someone else paid to have you answer a question here. Wait,
Okay.
this wasn't even to answer a question. I just got to actually look at it. This was Brody Swift gave us what was this currency? It looks like this is Australian dollars. This is
Wow.
75 Australian dollars. They said, "All right, here you go.
What?
Can't wait for the
Okay.
gouache demo, Morgan." Thank you so much, Brody.
I would actually like to keep adding to the course. I mean, the course is so complete. I went crazy. I just kept going, and kept sending Christian who was editing all this for me. I kept sending him more stuff. I want to add more. So I ended up doing 2 digital demos. I'm not a digital artist, but I know the Proko audience, and I knew that probably a lot of people would like to know how much of this would help you as a digital artist. So I did 2 digital head demos, and that's not something I normally would even include. And then I also have a whole pastel demo. I did a whole demo of a pastel huge head, and then I do charcoal demos as well. So this isn't just a painting course. I'm giving you how to use this thinking with any medium. And yeah, it'd be kind of fun, maybe to add a gouache demo to it too, just to make it like every medium I love.
I was gonna make a joke saying that a gouache demo in a course that's called portrait painting in oil on the Proko website. Seems unlikely, but you know what? Sounds like there's digital stuff. There's charcoal focus. It could
Yeah.
happen.
I'm very paranoid. I'm paranoid for people to spend good money on anything I do and not feel like I'm giving you everything I possibly could, you know? Like I just threw it all into this one. I could have broken this up into multiple courses really, but
Yeah.
I just decided to just like do it all, because I don't have time to keep making courses all the time. So I just put it all into the one.
I think doing it as one is this kind of this thing that you add supplementary materials to. That's the way
Hmm.
that I'm personally choosing to also structure any sort of educational materials that I put out in any way. I think it gives the most value to a person. I I want that to be a thing that is a kind of like a living document. You find something that someone has clearly communicated that they need as a supplementary piece of material, and you'll go ahead and put it in there.
Right.
I have some other questions. So we the piece that you're doing here is one that you are treating in a specific way because you are working quickly. You intended for this to be a quick demo rather than something that you put days and days into. Mikkel in the chat was asking, in regards to the general approach you show in painting without a brain, are there any noticeable changes to how you paint when it comes to shorter efforts like 1 to 3 hours?
Is there okay? Is there a different way I paint? Is that what they were asking?
Yeah. So do
Yeah.
you treat something like a 1 to 3 hour painting different? And do you go
Yes.
over that in the course?
Um,
I think that you.
because my thing is I don't recommend it to people learning how to paint.
I
Like,
see.
I don't know why a person who's not really, really advanced would want to rush a process as difficult as this is. Like,
Okay.
I mean, I I say don't use your brain and all this, but I'm not wanting people to think, oh, this is so easy. It's definitely difficult. And so trying to do a 1.5 hour, like teach you how to do a 1.5 hour head painting in oil or 2 hours even. Um, that would be like me trying to teach you the hardest thing there is to do. Like it's very difficult for me to do that. Why? Because I do have to do so many compromises, and I would have to probably resort to formula in order to meet that timeline that I just don't even think it's realistic to even say such a thing should ever be done. Drawings, yeah, you can do that with drawing, because you're just only using one thing you have to think about. But I mean, once you watch the course, you'll see there's no way you could just like rush through this
Yeah.
unless you don't care about drawing. Like the drawing part of the whole process is the part that makes everything take longer. Like if I just said to myself, "Oh, I'm going to show you how to do the planes of the head and use this head as a reference and watch this," and then in the end, it didn't look anything like Jeff Dujardin. He would be like looking. If I showed it to him, he'd go, "Is that supposed to be me?" And I go,
It's
"Yeah,
like
but I did it in an hour and a half."
it's
Oh,
like
that's nice,
cool.
but it
Yeah.
wouldn't like mean anything to him. But if I take the time to show you how to do like a 4 hour head or 5 hour head, you will not be discouraged. You would be discouraged if I show you how to do an hour and a half head. It would just be like, here's a blob, no more measuring. Measuring goes out the window, yeah, we're too much in a hurry, it would just be like, why even learn how to do that?
The other thing
I see no point.
I could see coming up a lot like this if you tried to actually teach the way that you would do this in like a limited time frame like that, this 1 to 3 hours idea, would be that a lot of the things that you would have to give would be specifically addressing the shortcuts that you're taking or the things that you're ignoring or prioritizing over others, why you're
Yeah.
doing that with an individual reference. And that's
Hmm.
going to be different depending on the reference that you're working from and the painting that you're making. That you would basically be giving, you would be trying to give a person this like 40 years worth of edge cases and knowledge on how you problem solve. And the thing you should be doing at that point is just learning how to paint and then come back around, and then you can use the skills that you've already developed to do the 1 to 3 hour painting.
Right.
So it's this near impossible task to make a course
Yes.
on that.
Right.
But it's a fun question. It's a fun thing to consider.
Yeah, no, well, it's a great question because it kind of I touched upon this already about timeline, like how much time you have, right? And I do think that you should say to yourself, some things aren't possible. Like this isn't
Yep.
possible. Just don't do it. know, do something else. Like I said to myself, I mean, I've been doing this for a pretty good long time. I was asked by the, Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma to do an hour and a half head demo in front of everybody, and I was like, hour and a half can't happen.
You,
I
you
just
just
said, can't happen. So I had to
is
pick a
that the thing that?
medium. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I had to pick a medium that wasn't oil because that's
Oh.
really what this comes down to. That's when I'd never had done pastel before, so I bought a $300 worth of pastels 2 weeks before this demo. I grabbed a bunch of paper and I just started practicing with models that would come in, and I said, "You only have an hour and a half. We were only going to be here an hour and a half." And I just practiced for a while, and I realized with a pastel I can show you. And then you can kind of see that in the demo I put in the instructional video. It's a quick thing. It's like pastel's completely different.
Yeah.
It's so quick, So, certain mediums just lend itself. If you want to do speed, and then let's say you're going to work at a wedding and someone's hired you to do portraits at a wedding, you ain't
Mhm.
going to be doing oil.
No. No.
Maybe pastel though.
Yeah, I think the classic thing that you see in that situation when someone does plan to do something in a short time frame, again, there are considerations that you make, some things that you leave on the you leave on the table that you don't do, or a
Right,
person will have prepped something that's already like 60 to 80% done in something, and then they know that they're going to leave the last 15% of it for them to do after the fact, but then they
right,
do part of that demonstration live for just a portion of it.
right.
So it's again still a fun exercise.
It is, and it's when you call something a sketch, then you're allowing yourself a lot of things. So yeah, you know, I mean, usually when we have people come in and pose, it's a 3-hour pose. That's a sketch to me still. And like when I've got a bunch of those on my railing. It's just, do I show them to anybody? No,
Yeah,
you know.
that also happens here. We have so when we've had live models come in here and Stan will just do some sort of quick drawing, we'll still sometimes record those just in case something worthwhile is found in that thing. He finds oh, I had a problem here that I think could work for instructional material. But by and large, those just sit on a hard drive. Those drawings go into the flat file. They don't come out, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So Brandon Dennis asked a question that I think you, as a person who you've already made clear that you will say no to a thing that someone asks you to do that seems unreasonable. So Brandon Dennis was asking, I have people send me photos with direct lighting, which flattens the face and doesn't give artistic lighting, asking me to paint. Do you get this too? And if so, do you invent better light? Or do you, Morgan, have the ability at this point in your career to just go, send me a different photo?
Well, I don't really I don't do commissions that people just send me photos, that kind of thing. So if I
Hmm.
did, I would say no probably half the time. I would probably say, I can't. I learned long ago there are things that you can just do, and the things that you can't do. And with oil, you can't do. And for me, I cannot have any degree of fun or success with bad lighting and bad reference, whatever. If someone wanted a real portrait commission, I'm going to say, huh, I'm going to meet that person. I'm going to,
Hmm.
I'm going to have that person sit for me. I'm not going to do it from a bad photo, but there are people out there that, you need to make some money. So you do what you have to do. But unfortunately, it's not going to be fun. It's just not, there's nothing to play with. The things that I teach, like in this course, I'm teaching you the four fundamentals of, edges and values and color and shapes and drawing. And those aren't not things you can do with bad lighting. Like with bad lighting, it's just so difficult to do anything with it. I just would rather not be an artist if that was all I was ever presented with. I would
Hmm.
just say no to it. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Would you recommend them trying to invent light, or would you try to suggest the idea of finding a different reference that maybe has some other similar characteristics to work from and compare?
I mean,
If they got to do it. So,
if you're really advanced and you got to do it, yeah. I mean, I know, like me on Situ, my friend, he wouldn't take good reference photos when he would do these big, massive, multiple figure paintings. I mean,
okay.
I'm kind of like, I'm like, I'm a nut, you know. I just want everything perfect. But I would see his reference sometimes, and I'm like, you you were the one that got to photograph it. Why did you not light it well? You know,
Why,
kind of
why were you
thing.
so mean to
It's like,
you?
and then he would just make up the lighting. I mean, but then he wasn't doing a portrait. He was just doing figures on a ship or whatever it
Mm,
was, you know. And he would just say, you know, well, yeah, so long as everything's just a little bit off, then no one notices that that's off, like that I had to make that up kind of thing. And that was I never heard that before. I never thought about that idea is if you just don't paint everything quite right, then the one thing that really was made up won't stand out so badly, you know?
okay. Okay.
And it's like, okay, I mean, why not just do a better job of photography, but you
Yeah.
know.
I like the idea of like, what if you just did all of it 25% worse? No one will notice.
But
Is
to do a portrait from a bad photo, like from a school photo or yearbook photo, I'm like, I would really like, maybe, I don't know. If you can do it, do it. I don't know. That wouldn't be what I would want to do.
That's fair. Yeah. Don't make things harder on yourself. I think that's actually the core idea
Yeah.
of this course. That's 20% off right now during this whole Proko sale. But yeah, that's the whole idea. So this is an extension of that. Don't make things harder on yourself.
Hmm.
All right. We have another here from Mannequinu in the chat asking, does Morgan have any thoughts on brush sizes? Seems that a lot of people recommend big brushes, while Morgan seems to be using smaller brushes a lot in this demo.
Good question. I wish we could throw him a dollar or something for that.
Yeah, just way to go. We're clapping for you.
There are a few things that I really like harp on in the course, and I've talked about all of them except that one right now, which is brush size. This is so important, and I'm glad you noticed that because it really is true. Um, I probably am one of those few out there that rally against using a brush that's too big for the job. Now, it goes against like something I remember, I think it was Howard Sandin or Everett Raymond Kingsler, one of those portrait guys that said, always use a brush a little too big for the job. And
Interesting.
all that ever did was bring me sorrow every time, you know, every time. I would always go, well, the minute I'm using a brush that's a little bigger than the area that I'm working in, I no longer draw. I'm now kind of like going into another mindset of, oh, I'm painting now. Oh, you know, and
Mm,
now, oh, well, that's not what it should be. Now I got to fix it. Oh, and now I got to fix it again. Oh, and pretty soon I'm not measuring. I'm not really like working the way I would if I had charcoal in my hand. That
mhm.
means I'm not, and by saying that, what I mean is I'm not drawing. Like if the brush makes you not draw anymore, as a beginner especially, but even for me now, I say to myself, no, 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 no. What makes me draw more is getting a little more precise. Like if it means taking a smaller brush and almost like making the square and then filling it in to get myself a nice little flat plane of a color, and then I do it again with a smaller brush, I can still make it look like it's just planes and brushwork and all that. But I'm actually doing it with more of an accurate kind of drawing involved with it. The bigger the brush gets, I notice this happens to the students. Like if they think they're going to do an eye with, you know, a big flat or something, and that's not as big as I've seen people use, they will not be thinking drawing anymore. Now they're just worried about how do I try to make it look like an eye using this big brush. Why
Mhm.
do that? Get yourself like a brush that lets you think about the size and then fill it in and just keep working. That's what I use to do with this. I'm literally just using small brushes most of the time. And then once you get into some large areas and you feel like it's getting under control, then I'll bring in, like some areas with a thicker flatter brush like that. I'm using most of the time, I'm using like these sizes, and then I'll maybe bring that in and just flick it, into the
Mhm.
background, or get myself some nice brushwork. It's amazing how the combination of the two is so much more interesting than if you did just all large brushwork or all small brushwork. I don't just leave it at, just the small stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's my answer to you. Yeah, that you're noticing something I'm really like harped on a lot, and it's a lot talked about in the thing. So good for you for noticing that.
Yeah. Look, getting all these flowers from Morgan over here. So we've well passed the point in this particular demo where you've gone back through and you've been going back and adding some like the reds to the cheeks, the nose, and
Yeah,
some areas you were talking about.
great.
What are the thoughts at this kind of stage in the process that differ from what you were talking about, where you have those premixed colors? What are you trying to pull out of this or communicate to the viewer?
Um, like I was talking about before, the realism I believe in flesh especially, but in anything, nothing is all one color. Everything's got a variation within it, right? And if it doesn't, make it. This is one of those things where if you want to add that touch of humanity, that realism to the flesh color, then at the stage where I feel like, okay, I got it all in, the drawing is still okay, everything's all right. Now it's time to like make some observations from what's really going on in the photo, and maybe push, exaggerate a bit of gray here and there if you can. One of the fun things that I learned early on from Fred when we were working in gouache was once you get the thing fairly rendered in basically your basic average colors, if you can match the value perfectly, but change it to a warm or a cool, within a warm area, to do the opposite of it, to vibrate into it, you can get away with anything you want to do so long as you match the value that's already there now. That's the thing. So you don't do these things until you've got pretty much rendered for the most part. And then you go, when I look and it's kind of an intuitive thing. Color is intuitive too. You can have some fun with it where you just go, I do a quick glance at the photo, or if the model's in front of you, you'll see even more color. And you go, he's got this like some kind of a gray influence coming from the left, that there's a gray wall over there or something kind of reflecting a little bit. So I'm going to just sort of match the side of the nose to make it a little bit grayer, but I'm matching the value that's already there. Or I'm matching the value that's on the side of the face, but I'm making it grayer or cooler. And what it does is it's that old sergeant trick, which it makes it look like it's turning even more if you consistently do that everywhere. And I talk about that more in depth, but that's what I'm doing at this stage where I'm now doing those little subtle things that make it special, like take it to the next level kind of thing. And the other thing that I don't know whether we've passed it or gonna get into it. I don't know where we're at with this, but that's where the Riley abstraction also now comes into it, right? Like around now. This is around the time where I start to think about, I've got everything under control. I think I'm going to go for some relationships, like the eyebrows or something, where I'm going to make it even stronger, where it's a little bit here, and then again, I pick it up here,
Can
and
you
it's
describe a
this,
little bit of what you mean there? Like
yeah.
unpack that a bit.
Um, so I know I can't get into the Riley method, Riley abstraction too much here, but if anybody that studies Proko already knows what I'm talking about. But
Certainly.
there are these rhythms that you can find, and they don't have to be the Riley ones. It's just you're looking for the matching mate to the form that's on the other side. Our heads are symmetrical, right? We hope. Mine's not, but somebody who's my nose goes like over this way, so it's not. But but you're hoping that your eyes are perfectly symmetrically like matched, right? You don't have like this sort of thing, and you're wanting your eyebrows to be so what I'm talking about is like on him, on Jeff, he's got like a thing going here. I'm making sure I strengthen, and I'll just sort of with my brush go from here and go over to here to make sure that I get a flow. But you're not drawing a literal line. You're just doing it here and then letting your brush take that sweep. Oh, right there.
To
And
just
then
reinforce that gesture a little bit.
maybe the eye kind of goes down here and you're looking for its partner over here. Or, and even if the head is at a 3/4 view or something, you still are looking for its matching mate. So that, from here, and then you're looking here, and you may just be one little flick, and then it's connected over here. The thing that's really a cool thing that you can implement at this stage of the game, if you bring me up, pause it for a second or whatever, but it's this whole idea of how the eye works. So, like with the eyebrow, if you go like this and you have a swoop to it, and you get that, the viewer's eye connects them. They can see this invisible arc that goes like this. And then if you have the eye that maybe at the top of the eye and it's like that, the eye connects those two without having to put anything in between it. Is that coming across?
Yep.
So you're looking for like the rhythm that's here, and there might be something there. Again, those little invisible connecting little spots, and you do that all over. That's the trick, the secret. Why I don't want this getting out too much, but
Yeah.
just between you and I, Stephen. Okay.
Yeah.
This is why the secret is what Nikolai Feshin's paintings, though, or his drawings that look like explosions.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they just like crazy explosions of paint and texture everywhere. But you look at them and you go, why do they feel like his draftsmanship is unbelievable? Like in the middle of all of that, there's just all this beautiful connectedness to it. And it's because he's probably more than anyone else outdoes Sargent on this. He's the master of this thing right here. This is, you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, he's barely put anything in that, but yet it's the connectedness to
Yeah.
everything has a connectedness. Everything. Nothing doesn't have a partner or something that's connected these lines. And you can't help but look at it and just feel like it's the most structured thing you've ever seen in your life.
Even though
That
it would seem like there's something missing if you otherwise looked in one particular spot, like zoomed in.
like, why do his eyes look so solid? Like, it's like, why? Why do they look so darn? He did that drawing of Ernest. What was it? The guy who played Frankenstein, I think.
Is it Borgnine?
Is it? What is it?
Ernest Borgnine?
No.
Is that the name you're going
the
for?
guy who played Frankenstein in the old one. I can't remember what his name is.
Let's see here.
He did a portrait of him, and it's so dang solid. I want to scream, like, my gosh, it's so solid, and it's that. It's
Boris
that.
Karloff.
Boris
And
Karloff.
I've got that piece here.
He did a beautiful drawing of Boris Karloff, and it's just a master work of relationships, just connected. And then sometimes it's just a simple girl's head, and it's just, if you look really closely at his drawings, they just have this nice thin little line connecting things. It's like in his paintings he's doing the same thing. He's also connecting, and it doesn't have to be a straight on head. It can be like this, but he's connecting all the time. So what am I bringing all that up for? This is the stage right now. If you have the time, you use those lessons from studying a master like that, and you go, it's not too late. I can try to bring some of that in. Now, I was trying to just, rush this head, but this is what I actually am trying to do with the final stages of a painting. I'm trying to use some of those more like, underlying secrets that the masters have used.
Yeah, no, this makes a lot of sense. I think that people, they think that that's something that you build in the beginning and then you just reinforce throughout, but
Right.
It's kind of the reverse. You put some structure in place.
It's reversed. Yeah.
But then you put some of that stuff on some of those things you discover along the way for
Yeah.
some pieces.
And
Uh,
the thing is that sometimes they're not there. That they're, they're not always in the right spots that you always think they're going to be. It's just you're looking for what this particular person in this particular light might be presenting to you, and you go with it.
mhm, mhm. Well said. I think so. Here we are, an hour and 54 minutes into this. Do you want to? There's very little left of this demo. I think maybe 10 minutes in the replay, 5 minutes in the
Yeah.
replay. Do you
Yeah.
want to go forward in this, or just let that kind of play as we answer maybe two more questions?
Yeah, let's just let it play, and then I answer any questions anyone has.
Okay. All right. So there was a question here from a person asking about digital art. Oh, did you retract your question? Oh no, here we go. All right. Lost and Still Lost asked, I have a question. When I paint digitally, I usually fill my drawings with a base color and then I do darks and lights. Is that not necessary when painting in oils?
Read that one more time.
When I paint digitally, I usually fill my drawings with a base color and then I do the darks and lights. And they're asking if you work drastically differently than that while painting in oils. Do you lay in like a base value essentially,
Well,
or like a base color, like a local value?
well, you can see what I just did in this demo.
Yeah.
You can
So
see kind
we
of
can
like
go
the
back.
process I used. I filled in my darks more, and then I start building into my lights, kind of a base color, and if you want to call it that, the average of things. And if I were to do that digitally, um, I would have much more freedom to do what you're talking about, which is I don't have to worry about wet paint. Here's the big downside of oil compared to digital, which is I got to deal with if I put down too much base, I'm now working into too much paint already, right? Maybe I may not want to have too much paint on the canvas before I start really getting serious. Whereas when I play around, and if you saw my um, you can watch my digital demos on my course. I do the same thing you're talking about. As I put down a lot of crazy stuff on the canvas first, and I always know that it's dry, right? Which is why I like, gouache, and why I also like pastel, is you can just work into a base color and just start working out of it without mess because it's not wet. So yeah, there are more opportunities to kind of like screw around with the undercolors and stuff, which I can't do and have the same amount of control that you're seeing me have with this painting.
No, I'm sorry. I was deep in this as people were following up. I imagine you answered this well. You guys say if you want, if that answered your question or not here. It seems like we got a question from another big fan of the color vibration, Marco Bucci. So it seems Marco Bucci asked a question that I think you've actually talked a little bit about here. He said, I'd love to hear Morgan's take on what kind of teacher Fred Fixler was. He strikes me as a tough love kind of guy. You did address this a little bit, but Marco Bucci has earned enough credibility with me that I'll give him another crack at it.
He was a great guy, and he was incredible draftsman. He had an incredible ego though, and we fed it, unfortunately. As time went on, he was the king kind of thing. So it kind of like was like we created a monster in some ways. Because the best example I can give, there's many I could give, but I still say I learned everything that was really important from him on art. But I knew also not to be like him in social situations. Like I would
Mm,
never want to be the way he was in social situations. I worked at the art store at Carter Sexton at that time when I was going through school. And I remember at school, we all revered him and you get out of his way kind of thing. But I got to see what he looked like in public when he would come into the store, the first time he came in, he was kind of like ordering people around the way he does at school, as though everyone knows he's the greatest teacher in the world. And I was just like cringing, like, oh my gosh, he's such a jerk right now. Like he's acting like everyone should be bowing to every whim he has, where is this, and I need this and all that. And I was thinking, okay, he's lost it. Like he doesn't realize that, yeah, you're a great teacher at art school, but
They don't
you're
know
not
that here.
the most important person in the whole world, kind of thing. So it was a lesson for me. Don't let the adulation that you get from maybe art people, to influence that you're something special out in the real
Mhm.
world. It's not that. But he was just an incredible guy who never held back because he was worried about your feelings. And so that was a good teacher if you were willing to go under that kind of thing. And that's why in 3 years I was already now like ready to do movie posters.
Mm.
And that was, because he put me through it. I remember my first time with art directors, and I was thinking, they're nothing. When they were telling me this isn't right or whatever, they didn't like it. I was like, this is nothing. I've been under Fred Fixler. I could handle any art director. No one was worse. So he prepared me for that kind of world.
Okay. No, yeah, this makes sense. You went to the school of hard knocks from Fred Fixler.
Yeah, and all of us that went to him, I think we all were successful because of it too.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, for the feedback that you do give in your course, do you think that you apply any of that same kind of rigor? Or are you a little lighter with people because you know that maybe some of those people aren't here for that kind of thing?
Well, I'm much kinder. And I believe that in the beginning, as a beginner, that you do need to make sure you don't crush a person or discourage them by giving them something that they can't handle right like too soon. My whole idea is that there's a lot of people that give up art. I talk to them all the time throughout my life. Oh, I went to art school or I tried to be an artist, but and there's one reason or another why they felt discouraged. And I just feel like there's a way to treat people as an instructor too, to make you feel like it is possible. And, just because maybe something went wrong, I can tell you why, and you can do it. There's no reason why anyone should have a problem following some put out in very simple steps. And if it's not too quick, I think one of the biggest problems is people being rushed to feel like they need to do something amazing, like super quick.
Mm,
And I would rather like let people take time to really like absorb the simple stuff, slowly working. That's why the course is built that way. I mean, like I said, I felt like I was tying my hands the whole time because I'd rather just say, just do what I'm doing, and it's like,
yeah.
like the way I do it right now after 40 years, just do it the way I do it. But instead, I'd like to like go back in time and try to remember what it was like for me, and just like I'm much with my critiques and stuff, I'm much kinder and that trying to just be more encouraging, but with along with that, be very specific about what can be improved. That's all. Just be very specific, and not just try to feed an ego either.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, though. There are going to be plenty of people out there who are going to feed your ego. You happen to be a great painter, so they're going to say good things about it every once in a while.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess so.
So just to put this back in here, this is what that final result was of this whole demo here.
Um,
Is there anything that you want to kind of say as a final wrap up for how this one turned out, how you feel about it, or anything that you feel anyone should know about this?
Um, yeah, just that this was what I would call a demo. Like what does Morgan think about this level of a painting, kind of thing. This is like a sketch in a way where with some very careful work that took place just now. But would I have gone further if I had more time? Yes. And the thing that's important is it's completely set up to take it even further. Like there's nothing in my way to saying, I'm going to put another 5 hours into this if I want to, because there is at least some solid work underneath there that will allow me to do such a thing, to actually take it even further. Maybe that would be too much time. I mean, it is just ahead, in terms of, size and everything. There's just so much I can do with it, but there is still more that I would rather do with it. And usually when it comes to that, it's more like I go back to the drawing board and I say to myself, let's do some double checking. Let's just see if there's anything I need to still fix, anything that might maybe lighten the value here. Like maybe the shadow could have just a little bit more reflected light now. That takes subtlety and that takes more time. So now let's see what kind of subtlety I can bring into maybe the shadows and start to lighten some areas and again, more that I could do with color. But for the time that I had, I'm happy with where I left it to show you that this is how, this process can take you to any point you want to take it to, and you can stop at certain. Fred always used to say, wherever you stop, if you drop dead, perhaps, for instance, let whatever you have at that point of dropping dead, that someone comes along and says, "Oh, too bad about Morgan, but at least he had, a good start." You know, it's like the shapes look good, drawing was solid. Let it always be at a stage where you have worked hard to get it to where it's at so far, and maybe you didn't finish it, but at least what you have looks good.
That's fair. Yeah, I like this idea of a thing where you could drop dead at any point in time, and someone would still be like, you know what, this could have been his greatest work, and I see where he was going here.
Right. Like
Yeah.
if I start to feel like I'm going and I'm sitting at the easel and I don't like what I'm working on, I'm just going to quickly try to scroll, burn it, like that, burn it.
Well, I think we were just talking about this, I think yesterday. I forget who the artist was when he died. He told his assistant to destroy all of the developmental works, the sketches and everything. He did not. And that's the only
Yeah.
way that we saw some of these works.
Yeah, I know.
So
I
you got to
know.
be careful. You got to scroll it and like give that task to someone you can really trust.
I'll be throwing out some stuff pretty soon then. Yeah.
All right, Morgan, I appreciate you taking the time today. Just as a final pitch for everyone who's watching this right now, Morgan's course is one that is actually approachable for a person who doesn't know anything about painting. He's going to take you through all of those core skills. He'll teach you the fundamental ideas of what you can do and what you shouldn't do inside of a painting and set you up for success, because it's the whole point of the course. There's a reason it's called Painting Without a Brain. And I don't want anyone to think that they need some huge amount of prerequisite knowledge to be able to take the course. It was structured and built the way that it was to support you as a person who is a beginner for a reason. Morgan, do you think that this course is worth it right now at only 80% of the price that it normally is? Do you think people should pick it up?
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't, for sure. If I was an art student, for sure, or somebody that wanted to learn art, I wish I had this sort of thing available to me. I could have probably gotten to where I needed to be in half the time if all that
Mm,
information was all put into one place. So yeah, I think it's worth it. I think it's a pretty good deal, definitely.
yeah, I agree implicitly. It's a well constructed course,
Yeah.
and pretty much everyone in this chat probably knows Patrick from our website, from the Proko team. He goes around, gives tons of community feedback to different people. It has the biggest stamp of approval from Patrick as a person who's followed along with those lessons. And I personally, I can't find a better metric for knowing that a course is well built for Patrick to say it. So thank you for taking
That's
the time
pretty
today.
good. Thank you, Patrick.
If you
And
guys want to, go ahead.
we'll come back and say one last thing. Again, my model was Jeff Dujardin, who plays a character in a movie or in a TV show called Elkhorn, and they have their finale tomorrow night on
Oh,
INSP. So please tune in and try to find that on Prime, Amazon Prime as well, to watch the first season of Elkhorn, because he's a good friend of mine and an actor, and he plays the main villain in the show. So you enjoy maybe watching his performance.
heck yeah! No, I like this. You gave people everyone an assignment right now, and when the teacher gives
That's
you an
right.
assignment, you have to do it.
Trying to get people to watch this show. We want a third season, so come on.
Yeah, here's hoping, man. So that was Elkhorn, you said, and people can watch
Elkhorn.
that.
It's about the early life of Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay. So I
Yeah,
take
it's
it
a cool show.
he's not playing Teddy Roosevelt. He said he's the
He's
villain.
not, but he's Teddy Roosevelt's nemesis. So yeah, that's
All
pretty
right.
cool. Real
All
person
right.
too in history.
All right,
anyways.
go check that out. And while you're watching it, you can bring it up proko.com/Weistling up on your phone, so you can pick up that course for 20% off while it's there, while you're watching the show. Morgan, thank you so much. Everyone, come back tomorrow and all the rest of the days of this week. We'll have more live streams as part of this whole rest of this month. There'll be more people announced next week for who we'll have for all of those days. There's going to be so many.
Thanks
All
for
right.
joining. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate the questions and everything. Hope to see you, on the storyboard side of taking the course.
Yeah, be there, guys.